And now we're going to look at the small intestine. When you're looking at the small intestine, if you have your organs all set out like they're supposed to with the right direction, you can see the diaphragm on the top, and then the small intestines. And behind the small intestines, you see a greenish colored larger intestines, and then you find the kidneys back there as well. So we're going to start. There's 3 sections to the small intestine. The first section is called the duodenum, and that's the beginning of the small intestine, and that's where the stomach, where it starts. And we cut that off somewhere up here. I've lost the end of it since we'll find it again soon. But where it starts, that is where the duodenum is, and then it is. The middle section is called the jejunum, and then the last section is called the ileum. Okay, if you look on the left side, on your left side, on the pig's right side, you'll see back here where the small intestines and the large intestines combine, and that is right here. And there's this large green sac, finger-like projection here, and this is called the cecum. This is the beginning of the large intestine right here. This is kind of like our appendix. And so we're going to cut the small intestines right here at the end of the ileum and remove the small intestines, cutting the mesentery. Mesentery is all of this tissue that connects the small intestines together. It looks like that, all of that tissue. So we're going to cut the small intestines away. So you can use your scissors to do this. And you're going to cut that one little section right there to separate the small intestine. And if you want it, before you cut it, you feel right there, you can feel another sphincter. It's hard, it's kind of hard right there. It's kind of like a lump. And that is where it's another sphincter, so that it doesn't back up into the small intestine, food that's already gone into the large intestine. And so now carefully we need to cut away the mesentery, and this is looking kind of messy, but we want to cut, and this is large intestine, so don't cut that part away, but carefully cut some of this mesentery so that you can remove the small intestines. And you're gonna need to measure the length of the small intestine and measure the weight, the mass of the small intestines. That's where we cut it off earlier, and so that's where we cut from the stomach, and so it looks like it goes back here behind the. So I'm not even really cutting, I'm just kind of pulling it away so that I can remove it from the. Oh. And be careful, because you might cut, if you cut anything but mesentery, we're going to end up cutting open the intestines, and we don't want to do that quite yet. Again, this is where the pancreas, so if you see here, this is where the pancreas connects to the small intestine, and so now we have the small intestine. Okay, all of that is small intestine. What it tells you to do next, you need to mass it, so you're going to measure it on your scale. using the weigh boat. But it asks you to cut away all the mesentery. So you're going to kind of uncoil it, and the mesentery is all this tissue that connects it together. So we're just going to cut that carefully so that we can uncoil it. And I'm not going to do all of it. I'm going to let you guys do all of that. But if you just continue to cut mesentery, you'll be able to uncoil it and see the length of the small intestine. And as you read in your manual, it says that your small intestine in pigs and in humans is usually about the 5 times the length of the organism. So we'll measure that and see. Okay, so we're going to continue uncoiling it so we can stretch it out and measure it. And that's the small intestine. Okay. It also tells you to take a portion and cut off 2 centimeters at the end of the ileum, and that's the end. That's the terminal section. That's the final section. This is the beginning. So I started where we connected to the stomach, and we're going to look for the end if I can find it again. Once you get it all stretched out, you can probably find the end a little bit more easily. But then, okay, so here's the end of the ileum. And you will have this already cut away from the mesentery cut out and stretched out. We're going to try to cut it open and see what it looks like on the inside. Okay, so we've cut that section off at the end, and so when we cut it open, you just want to take your scissors and slit it in there and just cut, and you're going to try to see if you can see some of the villi. The villi are the finger-like projections that help with absorption. Oops. Okay, so if you can kind of get that open, you can look on the inside. And it says to look at it under a stereo microscope, but we don't have those out for you guys, so just look with your eyes and see what you can see and record your observations about the inside of the small intestine. Okay, so I'm going to set the small intestine aside, and we're going to go ahead and look at the large intestine. The large intestine has three parts. The spiral colon, the ascending colon, and then the descending colon. 3 parts. Maybe 4 if you count the rectum and the anus and all of that. So here's the spiraled part, obviously because it's spiraled. Okay, and then you have the ascending colon on the pig's right side, and then you have the descending colon on the left side, and that goes back, and this would go out to the rectum and the anus. You're going to want to remove the colon, and again we're going to do that just by pulling it away from the walls, cutting the mesentery and some of the connective tissue. Careful, you don't want to cut anything behind it, like the part of the kidneys and the ureters and the renal. Okay, so this is the large intestine. Again, you're going to want to uncoil it, cut all the mesentery away. So all of this that connects it all together, you just cut a little bit at a time. This part right here is the cecum, right there. This is where the large intestine begins. It's all coiled up, so cut all of this apart, and pull it, stretch it out like you did the small intestine, measure it and weigh it and all of that, and then it tells you to cut open the end section, which is this section here. And again, you're going to try to look at what, so you can just snip off a piece at the end and try to cut it open and see the inside, what the inside of the small intestine looks like. Yep. And that's going to be the baby's first poop right there. So look on the inside and see what you can see on the inside of the large intestine. Okay. That's the end of the digestive system, so you can go ahead and answer your questions and record your observations about the digestive system.